In the last video, we talked about 4 steps that's going to help you to set goals that feel good to you and that make it more simple, slightly easier for you to follow through on. And now we're going to discuss exactly what it looks like to execute on those goals. So before we get into the meat of this, we need to review the anatomy of a habit. This is based on The Power of Habit, which is a book by Charles Duhigg, in which he says that there is a cue that prompts a certain behavior that then leads to a reward. Let's say you want to develop a stretching habit. So in the mornings, you stretch consistently. Then the cue could be either waking up or it could be brushing your teeth, getting dressed, but it's something that you're going to do every single day in the morning. That's going to trigger to you, it's time to do the behavior. It's time to stretch. So then the reward can be one of the dose chemicals is getting released when you're stretching. That's for certain. But you could also have the reward be, now I can look at my phone. According to Charles Duhigg, this is the anatomy of a habit. I would say personally that what I've seen happen is a cue leads to some kind of emotional experience, and that emotional experience leads to the behavior, leads to the reward or the relief, actually. So if we're looking at my addition here with the emotion, when we're trying to break a habit, I think the emotion becomes more apparent and also more important. When you're trying to change a habit, you have to understand what the cue is actually bringing forward in your mind before it leads to that behavior. Consistency, woohoo, it's time. Consistency is just showing up for the reps. This is where systems, if you've read Atomic Habits, comes into the mix, and also in iteration. But with consistency, what really matters is showing up for the reps. And I have said this before, but I think when you are starting a new habit and you're developing new behaviors and routines to reach that goal, you should spend the first at least 2 months just focusing on showing up for the time and space in which you're going to be doing that routine or habit. Not the quality of that routine or habit, but showing up for the space that you've created for it. Now that I've said my piece, let's talk about consistency. Let's talk about routines. Woo! One of the things that I love to introduce to people is what I call the minimum viable routine. The minimum viable routine asks the question, what is the smallest action you can take that moves you towards this goal? If you had the worst day of your life, if you got mugged and broken up with and sprained your ankle at your best friend's wedding, what is an action that you would be willing to take on that day, during that week, during that depressive cycle? That's what minimum viable routine is all about. Okay, what is the smallest action you can take that still moves you towards your goal? I always have my clients create 3 different types of goals. So we're working with the ideal, average, and the minimum. If we are taking a routine of stretching, the ideal might be 20 minutes every day, and then the minimum, touching your toes for 10 seconds. And then the average that you can probably commit to on a regular day. So there's a couple of things that I want you to understand about this. First and foremost, the NVR is about keeping your streak. It's not necessarily about quality of action. It is about doing the action so that you maintain a momentum. Another thing that I want you to notice, in these 2 routines, it's giving you a lot of freedom in terms of what stretching looks like for you. But the thing that makes the NVR so helpful is being hyper specific about what it is that you're doing. Because part of the thing that keeps people from consistency is a lack of clarity. And rather than me saying 10 seconds of stretching, specifically I'm saying touch your toes for 10 seconds. And when you're thinking about your minimum viable routine, you need to remove all decision making from the process. That's the goal of the MVR. Remove the decision making, make it so easy that it's not something you have to think about or choose. It's just something where you're like, that is an easy yes. So I want to give you another example in in the business context. So for my ghostwriting business, for me, a minimum viable routine for outreach is reaching out to 3 people who are already in my network, just saying hi. I want to put in the reps of outreaching people. And again, it could just be 1 message, by the way. It doesn't have to be 3. It's just, I know myself and I know what I'm capable of. If it needed to be less, it would be less. And it can be less, it can always be less. So the ideal is 25 cold people per week. The average that I tried to do is about 10 cold and 5 in network. In terms of routines, this is how I want you to be thinking. I want you to always make 3 different versions. 1 that you can do on the worst day ever. 1 that is like ideal. Honestly, it's probably your first draft anyways of what you think is gonna be realistic. And then the average is the one that like gets you where you need to go. It's like, I can do this on an average day. I'm a little tired, but yeah, I'm gonna be able to do that. I'm committing to doing this. That's part 1 of consistency. Another aspect of consistency that I want to talk about, but I don't want to draw out, is when you're thinking about your routines, think about habit stacking. So we went over the anatomy of a habit again, right? And one thing that I wanted to note is that another habit can be your cue. That's a useful way also to build consistency. And when you are kind of like meshing things, if you're trying to add more stuff and you don't want it to always feel like you're adding something else, folding it in to a process that you are already doing consistently is going to help kind of smooth that, you know, initial process of getting it to become a consistent routine. Yay! Iteration. This part is actually my favorite. Check out some of these other videos that I'll put in this area. Thank you for watching. Bye.